Vinessa, Floyd, it is great speaking to the both of you. I have to say congratulations on season 3, but more importantly, wow, what a series! And it definitely, when folks get a chance to see the beginning of the new series, what a way to represent what we have all been through in the last year and a half. I would say the first 15 minutes explains it all, right down to using the term Karen, which I thought was brilliant. Floyd, I'm going to ask you right off the top, how does it feel coming back with this series, but even more importantly, knowing how important it is from everything we've gone through? You've been representing this even beforehand.
Honestly, this season, like making this show was just, it was so tough this year. So I'm like, I'm actually so happy to be back in Toronto, even despite the fact that, we're kind of still living in pseudo COVID land. It's like, it was just really, there was a lot of emotion this season that there haven't been in other seasons when we've made the show. And part of that is because, we were shooting an episode about COVID while we were actually in a lockdown in Halifax. So it just, I'm like, I'm very happy that, we'll be able to show everybody season 3 very soon. But at the same time, I'm just like, I'm just very happy to be like just back in the city.
What were some of the? I'm going to ask you. I'll go back to you again, sir. What were some of the difficulties in filming this during COVID? Because I know I talked to people in that area. There were times where things were opening up. In fact, I think you guys were opening up faster than the rest of the country, and then things changed up. What happened during filming to be able to get this done?
So let's say we were in the last week of prep, and I think Nova Scotia was, they had like 6 COVID cases, 3 COVID cases. And then we started shooting. And by the second week of shoot, everything was shut down. Like they just basically like they did what they call the circuit breaker. And so no travel, all the educational institutions were shut down. So the first issue for us was we had cast who were in transit coming from like we had cast who were coming from the US and from Toronto, who were basically, we weren't sure we were going to be able to get them in to the province, and that like so they could actually shoot. So that would mean that we'd have to shut down altogether. Plus locations, the day that the circuit breaker happened, all of our locations vanished. So we were scheduled to go to a university and shoot the next day, and they were like, "No, you can't come here." We had to create, our production designer had to create a hospital set in our production office so that we could shoot. You know, and we would have like, and even though like production, like the construction industry, production was allowed to continue, because nobody, like the politicians weren't saying it's okay if you see these people shooting, it's okay for them to be out there doing this. The cops would be called every time that we were on location. People would be like yelling at us like on the street, about like, why are you allowed to shoot and I can't see my family? I mean, and then of course, like you get into like the whole idea of the mental health issues and the anxiety in terms of the crew. And it just, because you know I'm coming from Toronto, Vanessa's coming from Toronto, it's like we've been dealing with COVID in a very significant way and being restricted for close, I mean, almost going on 2 years now. And Nova Scotia, I mean, they had a period where, they locked down in the wintertime, I think, and because they had the cases at Northwood that were exploding. But then things started to open up for them. And so I think the level of anxiety when the cases went from 6 to 72 in the span of 48 hours I think that really shook people. And so, in a lot of that anxiety came to our set. So we ended up shutting down for like 3 days just so that we could help, just because I think people were, freaked out, and we were trying to figure out, okay, what's the best way forward in this. So it was a pretty significant issue for us in terms of like making the show this season.
It's amazing now watching this and seeing the difficulties you went through. I again, my hats off to you. Amazing, Vinessa. When I think about Marcy Diggs now, especially this last year and a half, to me she's like a folk hero. The fact that this character was created and the show was created and what it originally was supposed to represent, but this year and a half of everything we've all gone through, from Black Lives Matters to indigenous rights to the term Karen, your character really represents people, their hearts, their struggles, and their fights. How does it feel to me knowing that your character has changed into something even more significant for Canadian viewers and for Canadians in general?
Wow. I mean, that's a lot. I always approached Marcy Diggs with as much honesty as I could, as a Black Canadian woman. Absolutely, this season is one of is the time I think that Marcy has changed drastically, in that she's really grown up a lot. She's had to live through, as we all have had to live through, so many of these issues, like you said, from Black Lives Matter to all of the COVID issues to, the pain that has been this year. I kind of always looked at Marcy's this in season 3. I kind of always felt that she was bringing a little bit of the old Marcy that we've never actually seen before, sort of the prequel to season 1, the Marcy when she was a tough, a tough corporate lawyer, mashed up and mixed in with the Marcy that's had a year of reflection and, some quiet. And she's now got a different hat on this year, taking on all of these issues.
How was it for you? I mean, Floyd just explained all the things that you guys had to go through just to be able to complete this. For you, what was it like emotionally, physically, mentally, to be able to bring this character back to life? I'll use those terms. But at the same time, for you to be having to have these things around you happening. Why are you filming there? You can't do this. Are you supposed to be wearing a mask now? Not wearing a mask? Are you worried that you may catch something from somebody else? Emotionally, what was it like for you?
This is an absolute testament to the amazing producers that Floyd and Amos and Karen are. And I'm not saying this to blow up smoke up their ass, because Floyd knows me. They are, the amount of pressure that they held on to and kept me out of was astronomical. I actually did not feel a lot of the weight that they carried, because there's extremely kind people, but more importantly, they're just really good producers, and they understand what is needed to make a show and the level of work that is needed to happen. Are there times where we were able to vent to each other or have an emotional connection where we would talk about some of the things that are on our mind? Absolutely. But I have to say, they did not bring a lot of those issues to me. I had my head down in the scripts, and I was just really there to be a leader and make sure that I didn't break.
Amazing job. Floyd, how much of the news did you follow to be able to weave these stories into this season?
You don't write a show by yourself, right? We have a team of writers who, all bring different things to the table. And for me, it was, I knew that one of the things I wanted to do this season was I wanted to have a case. So I knew the first case we were going to do was going to be about COVID. That would be the A story. The B story, I wanted to do something that involved Indigenous women and in a class action suit. And we ended up, I ended up, like, we were in the writing room talking about the issues that exist within the Indigenous community. And we initially started talking about the fisheries and having a whole discussion around that. And then, of course, as we were having that conversation, all hell had broken loose in Nova Scotia because there was the fires being set to the Indigenous fishers' traps and whatnot in their boats. So we kind of were like, and then of course that resolved itself, right? In terms of, like, for the time being, it resolved itself in terms of, the situation. And then we were kind of looking at it, we were going, well, let's not do that, because we don't want to do something that has already been dealt with in Nova Scotia. We want to do something that's alive and fresh and where we can possibly help to impact change. So then we started talking about birth alerts. And one of our writers who's Indigenous, she brought up she's from out west, and she was talking about how this practice existed in Manitoba. And so we were like, okay, so then I started reaching out to a legal aid lawyer who I know in Nova Scotia. And I said, so tell me about this in Nova Scotia. And then once we started talking about it, I'm like, okay, we're definitely going to do this. And that became the genesis for how the A and the B story kind of came together.
It's amazing. Vinessa, how does it feel, though, that with this show, as much as we're learning what's going on today, it also tells stories of what has happened in the past and things that we haven't learned about, and you folks are bringing it up in the big screen?
Well, to speak to that, I mean, one of the episodes tells the story of, the fallout of what happened to, a child of Africville, and, how the city of Halifax actually did to devastate and completely, erase that community, and sort of what happened to those people, our people, Black people in Canada. And it's a story that we've heard, some of us have heard, but I have not seen it told from a contemporary point of view, where it's, told from a senior woman who lived through Africville and was removed from her community and thrown into a system. And what is the mental health, what are the mental health issues that came from that, for our people, that was like, that was one of my favorite scripts right from the beginning. I was like, oh my gosh, yes, thankfully we get to talk about Africville. And we get to speak about it in the truth that it is, which is the city of Halifax completely devastated and removed Black people from their community called Africville. And that is a fact, and that is the truth. And this episode speaks to that.
Yeah, they bulldozed the community.
Very, very important. Floyd, I know we're going to be wrapping this up soon, but I have to ask you, we have new characters. Who are our new characters in the season?
We have a new prosecutor named Ellery Lopez, who is very tough-minded, and she's the daughter of two cops who she ends up crossing swords and with Marcy and Doug. We also have, and she's played by Nicole Muniz. And then we have Antoinette Robertson from Dear White People. She's joining us to play a character who's going to have a huge impact on Marcy's life in good and bad ways. And we have Crystal Lightning from Trickster, who's joining us as Doug Paul's ex-wife, and so we get to kind of see sparks fly between the two of them. So lots of really great. I mean, honestly, like I cannot. The ensemble of actors this season just from the first episode, they blew my mind this year. Having the fact they've been away from these characters for 16 months, and they just kind of stepped in, and we were block shooting, so we were shooting 4 episodes at once. Which was once again another fallout of COVID. It just was like, it was amazing. To see, to kind of have to be in the emotion of what's happening and tracking all of that over the course of 4 episodes in one chunk, and they're giant episodes. You're just like, I'm in awe of the performers on the show.
And you feel the emotion. So again, it's like I said, I cannot wait for folks to see this first episode. Vinessa, as we wrap this up, what do you hope that fans will get from season 3? They got a lot from the first and second. I know what I got from what I saw from that first episode for season 3. What do you hope folks are going to get from this season?
I can't speak to what they'll get, but what I will say is, if you are expecting the same type of thing that we've been seeing with Diggstown for season 1 and 2, then you will be mistaken, happily mistaken, because it is a very different season. And I won't tell you which episode, but sometime within the first few episodes, there is going to be a pivot, and there is going to be a change, and it's going to look like a different show.
Doesn't that sound like what we've been going through for the last year and a half? Pivot and a different show. Folks, thank you so much for this interview. Thank you so much for this great show. Cannot wait to see everything in season 3, and looking forward to talking to you guys again at season 4. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you.